Thank you so much for joining me today, and delighted to be in conversation with both of you for our third episode of WISE, Women Inspiring Success and Empowerment. And it would be wonderful if you wouldn't mind, Wynter and Alice, introducing yourselves. And I'd love to then kick off and ask a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will give a little bit of intro on myself and my background and what I was doing before Pimentae, which we'll get onto. So I studied international business at the University of Leeds. And then I went on to do a placement year at IBM. Off the back of that, I graduated and joined the commercial graduate program at Sky, where I stayed for around 3 years. I worked across strategy, trading, performance, and the propositions side of the business. And I guess my main focus was always taking new product ideas from conception to launch, and just making sure they were commercially viable. And that translates very nicely into my role at Pimentae, which I'm sure we'll go on to talk about a little bit more. I look after all things commercial, sales, and ops. So building pipeline, acquiring new customers, nurturing existing business, building joint business plans, and all of that kind of stuff. And from an ops point of view, streamlining supply chain so we have a really strong path to profitability as we grow. I'll let Alice introduce herself.
And then I'm Alice. I also went to the University of Leeds, but I was studying management and marketing there. I did a year at L'Oreal in international brand activation. And then I went on to ASOS to do a brand and marketing graduate scheme there. So was working across customer insights, brand propositions, digital media, partnerships, that sort of thing. And that's very much my role at Pimentae now. So I look after all things kind of brand, social, partnerships, all of our digital and paid side of things, brand campaigns, shoots, packaging and design, the more kind of creative side of the brand. So naturally, between Wynter and I, there's a really nice split in our skill set. And I think we very much complement each other. And that's why we've worked very well as two founders, because we're not necessarily like clashing in our skill sets and very much complementing one another.
Perfect partnership.
Perfect partnership.
Always
I'm sure the audience are very keen to hear the story, what your story and your vision. So if we may, can we start from the beginning in terms of that inspiration? What inspired you both? Well, first of all, how long have you known each other? What inspired you to start the brand, and how did your experiences in Mexico shape your vision for the brand? And can you maybe share any pivotal moments or challenges you faced early on that solidified your commitment to this venture?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and Alice actually met at university when we were in Leeds. There was never any discussion of anything entrepreneurial, because at university they kind of pigeonhole you into thinking success equals working at a big corp and climbing up the corporate ladder. So we were very much pigeonholed into kind of applying for graduate schemes and things like that. And it was only when we were in our, I would say, like second year of our grad schemes, and it was COVID, and we were very much in isolation with our laptops, we realized, the thing that was drawing us to these big corps was maybe like the culture and the slightly more glamorized side that came with working at an ASOS or a Sky. But when we actually looked at our roles in isolation, we really didn't love them that much. And really interestingly, myself and Alice actually traveled to Mexico whilst we were at university together. And I think our love for tequila was born then. It definitely opened our eyes to the incredibly like complex and sophisticated nature of tequila when it's balanced correctly. Absolutely not something to be shot, but something to be sipped and savored. I mean, we're all guilty as charged for fueling that shot culture. But we've realized there was this wild knowledge gap in the UK driven by our shot culture. And I guess there was this kind of eureka moment when it was lockdown and we were making a lot of spicy margaritas together on the balcony. And we were like, nobody's actually doing a bottled margarita. Millennials are a little bit lazy. It's quite laborious. It's very time consuming to create a consistent spicy margarita. So we were like, instead of channeling all of our energy into watching kind of like Netflix and doing things like that in lockdown, why don't we just try and launch a spicy margarita and see where we get to? Because we've got nothing else to do. We're not spending our money on anything, I guess, useful that's helping us grow. So I'll let Alice maybe talk about the steps that we took to actually take things from conception to launch. But yeah, it was definitely a lack of love for our corporate jobs, but also our love of tequila.
We were really lucky as we had some savings between us. So it was a bit of a risky move, but we put pretty much everything we'd saved for the last kind of 10 years, I guess, into the business and starting the business. So between us, it was around 18K, I think. And that allowed us to literally produce the minimum quantity of bottles, get all the branding sorted, kind of build the website and all of that. And we initially started in our kitchen, so literally we're just making margaritas from scratch, using our friends as focus groups to see what everyone liked, which they really enjoyed. And then once we were happy with the recipe that we kind of wanted to create, we took it to a recipe developer who then were able to commercialize the recipe, so kind of switch out fresh ingredients to more shelf stable ingredients. And then once we had that recipe, we could go to a production facility and produce our first kind of 750 bottles. And that whole process took us about, maybe, what was it, like 6 months? If that. So from conception, it was pretty quick. And because we were quite focused on just the one product, we just had our mindset, okay, let's do the spicy margarita. If it doesn't work, then all we have to do is sell through that load of stock, or if it does take off, then we can kind of grow the brand from there. So I think we never really knew how big it was going to get and how quickly it was going to take off, but obviously that was a really exciting thing to happen. And we launched the brand with an influencer campaign. So by the time we launched, we kind of had run out of money and didn't really have anything to put behind actually like a big campaign or marketing activity. So what we did know was that a lot of influencers were at home because of COVID. They didn't really have much to post about. So we just created 30 really beautiful boxes that included the bottle, a really lovely rocks glass, handwritten notes. And we were up all night making them. And then we just literally, between us and our kind of siblings, drove them around London, hand delivering them to 30 influencers who had replied on Instagram and given us their addresses. And that was how we launched the brand. So on launch day, all 30 posted, which was incredible because we had some really big names within that, like Maya Jama, Michelle Keegan. And when they started to post, the traction just went crazy. And we managed to sell through pretty much all of our bottles within our first month.
And that's how the developing that unique identity of the brand. And as I say, there's the beautiful bespoke artwork on your bottles and really focusing on the tequila's heritage, and you've made it very personal as well.
I think also when we launched the brand, we wanted to make sure that there was nothing on shelf that looked like it. I think kind of the Diageos and the Bacardis of the world, they look very commercial on shelf, and as a result, consumers aren't drawn to them and they don't feel that kind of affinity or resonance in the same way. So we thought by creating a label that was totally hand painted and bespoke and artwork and told the heritage and the story of our brand, kind of has this really artisanal effect, and consumers, I mean, ultimately it's the aesthetic that drives the purchase, and then it's the taste that drives the repeat purchase. So we wanted to make sure those two things were absolutely nailed when we launched this. And I think that's what kind of drove the kind of like a lifestyle-esque aesthetic that we've got going on, and that kind of very much permeates through the veins of everything that we do, from the product to the label to the activations. It's how we make people feel rather than just being another clinical brand on a shelf. We wanted to create this experience and be a little bit more than that.
And the audience, having done quite a few of these wise conversations, are always keen to hear about how you managed to fundraise. So say congratulations on raising 5.5.
Yeah, 550 was the
pre-seed funding. Yes.
Around.
So it would be incredible if you wouldn't mind to share strategies or approaches that were particularly effective in attracting investment, and also how you allocate this funding to accelerate your growth and the milestones you're aiming to achieve. in the next year and going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first point to call out is for the first, I think, 7 or 8 months of launching Pimentae, myself and Alice were actually working full time whilst doing this. So Alice was still at ASOS and I was still at Sky. So we were using that income to fuel the business. But it was around 7 months after we full on quit to our jobs. And I think investors, first of all, really like to see that you're 100% committed to the cause that you're going for. That's not me saying take a jump too early, because you need to make sure that your business is in a position to bootstrap itself. But we landed our first piece of funding 18 months after launching the business. So we bootstrapped it for 18 months. And we had two angles in which we went for. So first, we approached high net worth angels. And second, we went on to a pre-accelerator program, which was the Distill Ventures Diageo pre-accelerator program. So I think in order for any investors to be interested, you need to be able to show commercial proof points. So whenever someone's launching a brand, the first thing I always say is, how can you drive top line revenue and just show there's demand and proof of concept? Because ultimately, I think that's what any investor will buy into. They need to see that there's growth potential. They need to see that there's demand. And also, it's no bad thing if there's a bit of competition. It shines a spotlight on the area. And for us, tequila was having this huge moment when we launched, and we've really tapped into that. So it was already a really kind of hot topic, and it had huge growth statistics that we could piggyback onto. So it was actually after we launched into Selfridges and we had done a summer of 7 or 8 events, that's when we started to see some interest from angel investors. And I think when you are fundraising, it is always a bit of a FOMO game. So once you kind of get a couple of people trickling in, that will push over the investors that are slightly warmer, and it's all about building the narrative. So if you kind of, for us, for example, let's say we had 100K worth of angel investors who wanted to put in money, we'd only announce them kind of like 30K stages at a time. Last week we got 30K. 2 weeks later, we've got another 30K, and people are like, you're picking up momentum. Okay, this is great. I don't want to lose out. So I think it's all about framing and it's all about narrative. But I would say the main turning point for us was when we got prospected for the Diageo pre-accelerator program. And we had to go through a lot of hoops and hurdles to get this through the line. I think they took on 2 brands in that quarter, and we were one of them. But once we had that injection of capital confirmed from the Distill program, which is renowned for taking brands like Seedlip to exit, that was perfect, because we could then use that to accelerate all of our other angels who are a little bit warm or hesitant, saying, look, we've got backing from one of the biggest global powerhouses in the world. Like, we're in kind of good hands to kind of grow and really scale this business. So those are the kind of initial stages to our pre-seed, but it's very much a roller coaster, and you have to be really, really resilient, because 99% of the time it is a no, and you need to not take it personally, but you just really need to handpick who you bring on board, in the same way as somebody that you're going to be in a relationship for the long term, because we've had some people who have offered us capital and we have actually said no, just because we do not want people like that associated to your business. And a lot of the time when you bring those kinds of people on board, you spend way more capital trying to get them back off of the cap table.
Yeah, and in terms of how we found them, it was very much just outreach on LinkedIn, trying to find pitch days, asking our network. I think the power of people and talking, and if they are a no, they might know somebody who knows somebody else, and that's just how it kind of ended up being. And the pitch days are really good as well, because there's a whole room of people who are kind of interested in investing or come from firms or looking for partners or things like that. So yeah, it is a lot of outreach and time, but eventually you get there.
And given that female founders, I believe it's what the stats are, 2 to 3%, so receive a significantly smaller percentage of VC funding, what advice would you give to other female entrepreneurs looking to secure investment?
So there are a lot of kind of syndicates and family offices and high net worth funds that look to support females specifically. It's overwhelming the amount of conversations that we have, and when we speak to venture capital funds and we see who their portfolio are on rounds that perhaps we didn't win, and they are all male founded businesses, and it's absolutely wild, which I think is why we found it so appalling when the government tried to put a policy in place that increased the net worth of an individual to become an angel investor, because that means that females can no longer rely on angel investors who are females or venture capital funds who don't prioritize females. So it's really, really difficult out there. But I would say if you're a business that's under 1 million in annual recurring revenue, focus your time on high net worth female investors, small funds or family offices, because the criteria is already so high to get venture capital to look at you. And it's kind of a little bit of a tick box stage. If you don't hit 1 million in annual sales, just focus on angels. They are easier to work with. And also if you can find a female angel or a female led syndicate who really believe in the mission, the injection of knowledge that you will get as a result from that will be so much more than a venture capital fund when you're an earlier stage business. And it's also just all about community and network. It sounds so silly, but posting on LinkedIn, going to every single pitch day, because all you need is one person to resonate with your business, and it can be the ticket that changes everything. And quite a few of our cap table investors, they're from warm introductions. So sometimes people don't take well to kind of cold outreach. So if there is anyone who you know is a really active angel in your business already, reach out to them and say, is there anyone else you think might be interested? Because it's those warm introductions and people kind of already having that relationship that I think really fuels how you can find the right partners. But it's a really difficult climate to raise in, it's near to impossible. So anyone who is raising at the moment just needs to, I guess, focus on survival rather than raising too much capital, because it's not easy out there at the minute.
But also get support on the materials and have a watertight pack. Make sure you know your numbers, make sure you know the market data, get support on a business model so that all your finances are in a readable format, because people want that and they want to see it. And also if you don't know it, they'll just turn away. And making sure, I think one piece of feedback we always get is how interactive our brand deck is. I mean, we just made it on Canva. It really was not that difficult, and we just did it from a very kind of authentic brand point of view, but that's what people want to see. And I think they connect with it and they instantly understand it because we've written it, whereas we've seen other decks and they can be very commercial and sometimes don't know what the proposition is. So just ensuring that when you are reaching out, you have everything ready to send them and that it's all in one place, because they're going to ask for it immediately.
So to both of you, how do you navigate? And clearly you are overcoming, but for future, being young female founders in clearly a male-dominated investment landscape, what key takeaways have you learned which will continue for future raises?
I mean, this one sounds like such an obvious one, but genuinely hats off to anyone who's a solo founder. I lean on Alice so much. We're such different personality types in terms of how we operate. And Alice is kind of way more calm and level-headed. And I'm I take everything as a personal attack, which is never great. And Alice is just no, it's fine. This one didn't happen for the reason, on to the next. But I genuinely think it's having this really solid belief in our proposition and knowing that every single hurdle that we've overcome to date, it's just another hurdle that someone else has to get through, and it's not easy. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. But I think just having an amazing network around you and just having this mental state, it's all about perspective. When somebody says no, you have to hear yes or not right now. And I think that's what keeps us going. And we've been in so many difficult situations, whether it's from a production point of view, a cash perspective, all of these kind of cynical comments about the landscape and things like that. But honestly, it just has to be one day at a time. You need to survive it, and you just need to keep pushing through and have that really, really deep rooted belief that every single time something doesn't work out, there's a reason for it that will become obvious, whether it's in 2 months or 3 months, and just to kind of keep pushing on, because it's really, really easy to just kind of be right, we're going to throw in the towel. But yeah, it's just constantly being cheerleaders to each other.
Yeah, and just really believing in your vision. And if you do get that pushback, remember why you started, and remember how far you've got by just trying and taking one small step at a time. Because I think sometimes we forget, we're oh my God, we're so in the midst of chaos. But then when you kind of take a step back and look at everything prospectively, how far we've come from having very little knowledge. And literally through our journey, we've got so much advice, some that we've taken, some that we've gone against, and some of it's come from kind of very renowned industry experts us that what we're doing is like not the right thing, but we've kind of listened to that and then gone away and thought, actually no, like that's not what we believed in, and if we're going to do the same thing that's been done in this very archaic industry, like we're just going to get to the same outcome that all the other brands have got to. And I think that was why we started turning heads in the first place, that because we're doing something different and we're kind of building this organic community through experiences and being more engaged with our audience. And that was why 18 months after launching Diageo noticed our brand, is because we're kind of doing things on very little money, and we're just doing things in a very creative way, I think. And people often ask us, oh, did this, who is doing your social, you know, like who's helping you with this? And we're just a team of 4, and it was just Wynter and I for 18 months. So I think just being very set on your vision and also being very aligned as a team has helped us get through.
So picking up again on a couple of key points there, team, leadership, and as your business scales, what do you look for in terms of those key hires, in terms of culture, as I say, hiring for the future?
So I'm obsessed with our team. I know I'm biased, but I think I interviewed 41
They're amazing.
people. Yeah, they're absolutely incredible. I think I interviewed 41 people before I found our national account manager.
Okay.
And it's never settling for anything other than absolutely like fantastic. You need to have people in the team who have founder mentality. You do. It's a chaotic job. You have to wear every single hat every single day. And you need to have people that you're sure are going to want to scale and grow the business with you, because at the end of the day, like they're going to be the founding members of the team, and they understand the vision, they understand the nuts and the bolts. I think it's just about having that implicit trust. We always say, like, if we couldn't go for a margarita with them for an hour, no, you're not getting the hire, because I think you just have to be able, we're all so close, and I'm literally on like FaceTime to one of our national account managers like 8-9 times a day, and we're like, okay, right, we're just constantly being agile, and you have to be able to pivot. But ultimately we need a team that can help us scale in the way that we want. And this year focus has been on growing our footprint across the UK. We're looking at EU exports, but ultimately the goal is the US in the next year. So we need to have experts in each area, but I think the important thing is that we're always super streamlined. We always want to be a business who spends as if they have no budget. We don't want to kind of be seen as this kind of global corporate business who's growing really quickly. Like you said earlier, it's got to feel authentic. It's got to resonate with our consumers, and every single person will be handpicked to kind of deliver the essence of Pimentae.
Yeah, and just a lot of creative thinking. I think we've always been very lucky that we have an amazing vision and we kind of reach the stars, but it's worked in our favor because we never limit ourselves to what we can do. And I think people that come into the business with the same mentality and ideas of, you know, reaching out to the huge partnerships or doing this event or doing something that's not been done before actually is what starts to turn the needle for the brand. And if we can create as much noise as possible with very little, people are always shocked when we say we're only a team of 4. They think there's like 20 people behind this machine, and we're like, no. But yeah, I think it's just creating a lot of noise and being able to do it in a creative way, and that comes from within the team.
Thank you. And in terms of, therefore, small lean team, work-life balance, as young entrepreneurs, it's balancing the demands of running a startup with a personal life, self-care. What do you put in place to manage the stress and also maintain that productivity and the pace that you are clearly growing at?
So I think at the beginning it was a lot more challenging, and I won't lie saying we had amazing work-life balance. For the first 18 months when we were bootstrapping the business, we really had to forego our salaries. I can remember me and Alice would be like smuggling our own like tequila into bars. We really had to take a backseat in terms of like doing what we were used to on our corporate salaries. So it was just adjusting and kind of telling ourselves like short-term pain, long-term gain. These are the small building blocks that like every founder will have to go through. I think any founder would be lying if they didn't tell you the first kind of year, 2, maybe even 3, the balance is always going to be offset because it's your personal money on the line. it's kind of proving out your concept to everyone else. And I also ultimately think like a lot of people don't want you to succeed when you're doing something that they're not. So there's just all of this pressure. But I think over the last year or so, even like when it came, I can remember when me and Alice first came to like paying ourselves a proper salary, we were like, no, this feels weird. This is money that should be like going into scaling and growing the business. But I think like the most important thing is like putting yourself on a salary where you're comfortable, obviously not too comfortable, but one where you can actually maintain a social life, like pay your rent, do things like that. Secondly, boundaries. Like always make sure you're like exercising, doing the things that you love, sports. I think podcasting is also a really great way to like understand other people's journeys as well. But I think in the last year, it's hire above you when you need help. So we've got 4 permanent hires and we've got an ops consultant. And my God, the amount of stuff that myself and Alice can do from a more like strategic investment point of view is wild. Like your hires need to be people who are going to either like focus on revenue growth or like taking away like more administrative stuff from you where your skill sets aren't the best. So growing out the team, I think, needs to be a core focus to build balance. And no, it's not easy, but I think the best money spent is on bringing other people on board, because ultimately there was a ceiling to what me and Alice could do. And I think we hit that about a year and a half ago. But now we've obviously got an incredible marketing manager, national account manager, and ops consultant, which is perfect.
And last week was the first time in 3 years that Wynter and I had been on holiday together and actually managed to switch off, because obviously we were in the same friendship group at uni. So if we go away with our friends, we have to work, or one of us has to kind of make sure we're in London or something. But actually it was like so weird because we both went away and we actually just trusted that everything was going to be fine, and it was fine. And the girls did an incredible job, but they just picked up, kind of let us have a good time. And I think that shows that we've got to a place now where we've built a culture that what we wanted to. And I think just making sure that we are taking that time, because like Wynter said, for the first year it was so easy to burn out because you're just on this hamster wheel of, okay, I need to keep going, we need to do more. There's never ever going to be a time where that list is done or there's no more work to do. There's always going to be something to do, but you really do have to be strict, because I think both of us went through phases where we realized actually this is actually negatively impacting not only our mental health but productivity as well. And kind of setting times, okay, like 5:30, 6 o'clock, just stop working because there's no point anymore. Like you don't really get much done in the evenings if you're so tired and so stressed. So just allowing ourselves that time to wind down as well.
Sustainability and social impact. Could you elaborate on these efforts? 100% plastic free, or goal to become B Corp certified? What motivated these decisions? And also balancing sustainability with business growth and the challenges you've encountered in maintaining your eco-friendly practices.
Yeah, I think it's in a time now where there's no excuse not to be an ethical business in terms of sustainability. So we kind of covered all the foundations that we need to. So we are plastic free, we produce in the UK. We try and really encourage kind of upcycling, and all of the materials we use are locally sourced or fully recyclable. And we're working to become B Corp certified this year. I think it's one thing has actually been just educating on how we can do and be better, because nobody really tells you things like how to manage your carbon footprint or all of those kind of things. But yeah, it's something we're trying to really build into our strategy, especially as we grow, because obviously we're producing more. When we start to export, we're going to maybe look at other options. But yeah, at the moment, we're really trying to, as a brand, do everything we can, and also kind of shed a light and give back to where our tequila comes from. So a lot of people don't really understand that tequila is this protected spirit, and it can only come from tequila in Mexico, like champagne does. So it's owned by the Mexican government. So we really want to kind of give back to those communities who are farming. So we work with a charity called Sacred, and 1% of our monthly revenue goes to Sacred, which help the local community in Mexico kind of regenerate the land, build schools in the local communities and things like that. So we really try and give back to any part of the business where it's not necessarily coming directly from us. And that's important to continue to kind of open that conversation and see how we can do more and support as a brand.
And I also think it's key to kind of highlight throughout our supply chain, wherever we can, we look to minimize waste. So we import our tequila in 1,000-litre IBCs. So that totally minimizes single glass waste, which a lot of brands still do when they're working with tequila. So they'll import thousands of glass bottles of tequila, because tequila has multiple legalities surrounding it. And then we also use micro fulfillment centers that deliver our product either using bicycles or electric vehicles. So we are really minimizing our carbon footprint wherever we can in our supply chain as well. So it's definitely a huge focus area for us.
In terms of industry trends and challenges, in terms of beverage, the beverage industry, what are you most excited about? And how do you plan to stay ahead of the curve, and maybe biggest challenges you see in the next 5 years, and how you may look to address them?
So I guess it's no secret that kind of tequila is absolutely dominating the global and UK alcohol space. It's the fastest growing global spirits category, and now the fastest growing spirits category in the UK, which is super exciting. All national grocery KPIs are pointed towards growing the tequila category, which is great for us, because one of our key messages is you can grow your tequila category through tequila RTDs, ready to drinks, which I think is a more accessible avenue for consumers, because I still think if you gave a consumer a bottle of tequila, they tried to shot it, they wouldn't necessarily know how to make a paloma or a margarita. There's just some more education that needs to be done. So there's a really nice angle in growing not only the tequila space, but also the ready to drink category has shown, I think, like 87% growth year on year, and it continues to increase, just because consumers love this kind of premiumized category where you can have cocktails on the go wherever you are. So we really do think our products showcase the synergy between two absolutely booming categories, being tequila and ready to drink cocktails, which is super, super exciting. I guess in terms of challenges, and I think I think maybe it's just like me and Alice have been trained to hear positive when people question us with negative, but a lot of people are like, aren't you worried that the likes of Casamigos or Patron or whatever, they'll bring out like a tequila based RTD? And we say, no, one, because it's shining a spotlight onto the category. Competition is good. And two, we've spent the last 3 years curating this community and this really authentic product. And consumers don't love us because we're a big name. Consumers love us because of the events we put on, the labels, the kind of artwork. It's the spirit of the brand, and that's not something that you can buy as a larger brand. So that's what I'd say. But yeah, tequila's thriving, so we're happy.
And long-term goals, would you say, and how you see it continue to evolve, and collaboration possibly?
I think we definitely want to, as I mentioned before, EU is a huge focus area for us. Me and Alice were actually out in Ibiza last week, and we were taking multiple meetings in terms of distribution out there, understanding how supply chain works. But ultimately, we want to be famous for being the kind of highest quality tequila RTD brand out there, because there's nobody in the UK who solely focuses on tequila. So we want to be famous for one thing, which is tequila-based cocktails. We want to export into the EU and then scale into the US, where they drink tequila like it's water. So they've got a tequila spirit, most consumed spirit out there, more so than vodka, whiskey, seltzers. So that market is ready for us. It will just be launching with the right, I guess, strategy and initiative, and we've already got all of that in progress, which is super exciting, and doing it in the right way. But yeah, tequila is a competitive space, but I just don't think there's anyone out there who's matching the quality of the liquid right now. So yeah, those are the kind of next in terms of growth plans.
And just probably growing, I don't even know if we went through our range, but obviously we're purely tequila based cocktails. We currently have a spicy margarita, Tommy's margarita, cucumber margarita. We're about to launch I don't know if I can say it, I will, grapefruit margarita. And then we do it in multiple formats. So we do cans, bottles, kegs, bag and box. And what that means is that we can speak to every channel, so that there's always a time and a place that you can enjoy a margarita and a bar quality one as well that's easy to serve. The cans are obviously in Waitrose at the moment. We do all of our kegs in festivals, bars. We're working with Fuller's Pub Group. We'll be doing kind of 20 festivals across the summer. The bottles are an amazing proposition for gifting and that sort of thing, hampers, corporate hampers, and the bag and box is great for kind of bigger events or parties, weddings that we're seeing huge traction with. So we really provide something for everyone. And I think there's a big shift in mindset on pre-mixed, and where it once had very negative associations, everyone's realizing that actually you can still get that quality. It's just that nobody was really delivering it. And so it's still very early on as a category, but mindsets are very much understanding that you can get this quality from these drinks. So I think that has very much resonated with the growth that we're seeing.
Thank you. And as we close, I'd love to hear, for those, again, those aspiring young women out there who are looking to start their own business, is there anything you would have done differently in your entrepreneurial journey so far?
Yeah, we always say like ignorance was total bliss in our occasion. I genuinely do think if we went into it with this all-encompassing knowledge of this is what, like, these are all of the like certifications you would need, these are all of the production issues you were going to have, this is all like cash flow stuff. Like, I genuinely think coming into an industry with a fresh pair of eyes where you have no experience is no bad thing at all. And I think more universities need to bring in young founders who have taken their businesses to new levels, because I think millennials are the most entrepreneurial generation of our time. And I think there is this huge pairing between like fulfillment and running your own business. And we should be more primed and prepped to kind of enter this world, because currently they just don't have the toolkit to do this. I genuinely don't think there's anything that we would have done differently, but I wish we had more of a toolkit to tell us, okay, this is what the infrastructure of a business looks like. This is what you need to register. These are the steps that you should potentially take to get your minimum viable product out there. Here are some things that you could think about for getting proof of concept. This might be a good time to start looking at like investment, just so you're a little bit more prepared for what's to come, because I think sometimes we just felt so overwhelmed with the amount of different areas, from like commercial, sales, ops, investment, and we had no expertise. So for us, it was just kind of playing catch up. So my advice would just be, if you've got an idea, no matter how old you are, whether it's from university, whether you're in a corporate, literally just do what you can to try and get a minimum viable product out there. Like, what is the worst that could happen? I don't think there's anything worse than a what if, to be honest. Like, what ifs just haunt you, don't they? So that would kind of be my advice. And it's just one step at a time. Me and Alice went to Leeds University. We're two very normal girls. We like to think that we've got a bit of a brain on us. But yeah, we just took it one step at a time and let the proposition evolve, listen to the market, listen to what consumers want, and then just one step at a time.
The only thing I would say that we should have actually done more on from the get-go, which is really working for us now, is being more transparent about the journey, us behind the scenes, and some of the things that we are struggling with or failing at. Not necessarily failing, but things that have gone wrong, for example, because it happens to everyone. And what our audience seems to really be connecting with is that it's us two running the brand behind it, and obviously our team. But that, it's not all smooth sailing. And I think when we started, we were trying to paint this picture of this perfect brand and all these amazing photos, and everything was going so well. And actually, behind the scenes, it wasn't necessarily the case, but that's what people want to see. So yeah, just being more transparent with our audience and actually showing the journey that we're going on, because at the end of the day, like, people connect with people, and that's what people really like about our brand.
And legacy, what do you both hope to leave in the industry and beyond?
Everyone to love tequila.
We've always said we want to shift consumer perceptions of tequila being a shot to being like a really complex liquid. But I think for us, like, we really want to scale the business and prove out all of those different pain points and showcase that you can scale a business, still have a streamlined team, have multiple formats, have multiple flavors, and have a proposition that works not only for the UK market, but also for the EU and also for the US. And obviously our dream is to be a scale up and exit the business to one of the larger brands, because we've always said, like, we're a fast moving brand. We want to grow and showcase that to be acquired, you don't need to be like a corporate clinical beast. Like, you can take something from conception, scale it, and then hopefully have it bought out whilst kind of maintaining its identity and the culture and the like phenomenal people in it. So I think that's the ideal legacy, and hopefully, yeah, do that in the next like 7 years.
Yeah, and just encourage more change, I think, with female founders. Obviously for us too, it's something that has been challenging at times, but incredible in other senses. And I think unfortunately there just are less female founders out there, or that they're worried about starting a business, or they don't think the support's out there, or they don't know how. And it's also the same with investing as well. I think we've really seen that when we've gone through that journey. As much as we'd want, a board of all female founders, unfortunately it is like 90% men, because it is really hard to find female founders out, female investors either. And I think, yeah, just sharing the knowledge on that, because even for the two of us, from starting our investment journey as a business, it actually encouraged us to start investing ourselves, because I think it's something that seemed so far-fetched, but when we kind of started to learn about it, it was really simple. And yeah, just encouraging more people to do that, because I think, being like financially independent is so important, and it can really give people the confidence to do more.
Well, thank you so much, Alice, Wynter. It's been an inspiration just chatting with you and listening to your story. And clearly it's an inspiration for the next generation of female entrepreneurs, through just listening through how you've managed to achieve what you've achieved, only in such a short space of time. So thank you.